The legacy of Pharaoh Merneptah, peace in the scorching sands of the Egyptian desert, a figure of unwavering authority and strength emerged. Merneptah, the fourth pharaoh of Egypt's 19th dynasty, his reign, though brief by some standards from 1213 to 1203 BCE, was a period of both turbulence and triumph, marking the continued greatness of Egypt's imperial legacy. Born the 13th son of the legendary Ramesses II, it was not expected that Merneptah would rise to power, yet destiny had a different plan. Upon his ascension, Egypt was already a vast and established empire, but the threats from both within and without would soon put his leadership to the test. Merneptah's reign was defined by defense and consolidation. His kingdom faced encroachments from multiple fronts, most notably from the Libyans and their Sea People allies, who sought to exploit Egypt's seeming vulnerability. The year was 1208 BCE, and Merneptah led his army into battle at the Western Delta, where these invaders sought to claim the riches of Egypt. In what would be one of the most decisive victories of his rule, Merneptah crushed these forces, securing Egypt's borders and demonstrating that the nation, though aging, was far from defenseless. This victory was immortalized on the walls of the Karnak temple and in the Great Karnak inscription, where Merneptah detailed his triumph over the Libyan coalition. However, Merneptah's legacy extends far beyond warfare. Inscriptions from his reign reveal his attention to both religious and civil duties. He ordered the restoration of temples, many of which had fallen into disrepair, and ensured that the sacred rites of the gods continued uninterrupted. The stability of his governance allowed Egypt's grand culture to persist, even as other great civilizations around it began to crumble. Most famously, Merneptah left behind the Israel Stele, an inscription marking the first known mention of a people called Israel, solidifying his place in both Egyptian and biblical history. But like all pharaohs, Merneptah was bound by the inevitable passage of time. By May 1203 BCE, he succumbed to the same forces of mortality that had claimed his predecessors. Yet his death marked not the end of an era, but the continuation of Egypt's resilience. His reign, short yet significant, stands as a testament to the enduring might of Egypt, a civilization that had already weathered millennia of history and was destined for more. A reflection of self-knowledge. Merneptah's story is one of perseverance and duty, a reminder that greatness is often born not in times of peace, but in moments of crisis. His leadership, even when unexpected, proved that destiny favors the prepared and the resolute. Just as Merneptah strengthened Egypt's foundations, so too must we fortify ourselves with knowledge of the past. In understanding the wisdom of those who came before us, we realize that every challenge we face today is a stepping stone towards a future built on strength, endurance, and self-awareness. In the sands of history, the greatness of Merneptah is etched, proof that even in the twilight of empires, true leaders rise and ensure the flame of greatness never dims. The unseen struggles of Merneptah beneath the victorious inscriptions and grand statues lies the story of a ruler who inherited not only a throne, but the burdens of an empire that had grown vast and unwieldy. Merneptah was no stranger to the complexities of governance. Egypt's borders stretched across diverse lands, each with its own cultures, needs, and ambitions. From the farthest reaches of Nubia to the eastern territories near Canaan, Merneptah had to navigate the delicate balance of maintaining peace within and defending Egypt from external threats. Though his victory over the Libyans and Sea Peoples is celebrated, Merneptah also faced internal discontent. Famine struck Egypt during his reign, and though it was not uncommon for the Nile's cycles to vary, This shortage tested the stability of the nation. The Nile, the lifeblood of Egyptian civilization, had failed to flood adequately, leading to diminished harvests and social unrest. Merneptah, understanding the gravity of the situation, took measures to ensure grain supplies were distributed to prevent mass starvation. His inscriptions speak not only of his military might, but of his administrative skill, showing his ability to handle both sword and scepter with equal effectiveness. Religiously, Merneptah remained a staunch supporter of Egypt's traditional pantheon, though his reign also reflected the growing significance of personal piety among his people. His inscriptions make mention of offerings to the gods, particularly Amun-Ra, who was seen as the king of gods and the protector of pharaohs. By maintaining these rituals and restoring neglected temples, Merneptah reinforced his connection to the divine, ensuring that Egypt's gods continued to favor their mortal king. It was not just for the people's faith, but for the survival of the state itself, as Egypt's identity was intertwined with its religious practices. One of Merneptah's most enduring legacies, however, comes not from within Egypt, but from a distant land. The Israel stele, also known as the Merneptah stele, is the first recorded mention of Israel in ancient texts. Found in Thebes and dated to the later years of his reign, the inscription records Merneptah's campaigns in Canaan. It states, "Israel is laid waste, its seed is no more." This brief yet powerful mention places Merneptah in a unique position within biblical history, making him a pharaoh whose influence stretched beyond the borders of Egypt and into the annals of religious tradition. Merneptah's place in history. In the grand timeline of Egypt's ancient rulers, Merneptah may not have ruled as long as his father, Ramesses II, nor achieved the monumental constructions that some pharaohs are known for, but his greatness lies in his adaptability. Egypt, in the twilight of its imperial era, was surrounded by enemies, plagued by natural disasters, and faced with internal strife. Yet Merneptah stood firm. He repelled invaders, sustained his people through hardship, and preserved the sanctity of the Egyptian state. His reign marks the beginning of Egypt's slow decline from the height of its power, yet his efforts to maintain what his forefathers had built prevented a swifter collapse. Thus, in this, Merneptah's legacy is one of vigilance and resilience. He was a ruler who held firm in the face of overwhelming odds and ensured that Egypt, though weathered, remained a beacon of power in the ancient world. The lesson of Merneptah: greatness endures. Merneptah's story serves as a powerful lesson for those who seek to understand their place in the world. His reign, though challenged by war, famine, and decline, was marked by strength and determination. His greatness was not in avoiding conflict, but in confronting it head-on, understanding that a true ruler, or a true individual, faces challenges with courage, wisdom, and resolve. In our own lives, we must remember that greatness does not always manifest in monumental achievements or long-lasting rule. Sometimes it is found in the quiet strength required to endure, to protect, and to preserve what is most important. Merneptah's legacy teaches us that true power comes from within, and that knowledge of the past, of our ancestors' victories and struggles, can guide us as we forge our path forward. In the shifting sands of Timi, just as Merneptah's reign was etched into the annals of history, so too are we capable of leaving our mark. With resilience, self-knowledge, and the wisdom of the ages, we carry forward the torch of greatness, understanding that, like Merneptah, our strength lies in our capacity to endure and overcome. Saddam, the final days of Merneptah. As the years wore on, Merneptah, like all great rulers, found himself confronting not only the threats of his enemies, but the unrelenting advance of time. Says, the once vigorous warrior king, who had commanded Egypt's armies with precision and strength, began to feel the weight of his years. By the time of his death in May 1203 BCE, Merneptah had ruled Egypt for nearly a decade of continuous struggle to hold together the empire his ancestors had built. The latter part of his reign saw Merneptah navigating the intricate web of diplomacy, particularly in the Levant, where the remnants of Egypt's influence stretched thin. The Canaanite cities, long under the thumb of Egyptian dominion, began to resist, even as Merneptah quelled these uprisings, sending his forces to ensure Egypt's presence in these lands. He knew that the time for Egypt's unchallenged supremacy was fading. The Sea Peoples, who had already tested his military strength, continued their migrations across the Mediterranean, unsettling the delicate balance of power across the region. The world around him was changing, and while Merneptah could forestall this change, he could not stop it. Despite these challenges, Merneptah's reign closed not with a whimper, but with a final act of defiance against the forces of chaos. His son Seti I would succeed him, inheriting both the glory and the burden of an empire still standing, but fragile. The tomb of Merneptah in the Valley of the Kings was carved deep into the rock, a testament to his belief in the eternal legacy of Egypt's pharaohs. Though time would ravage the tomb and its treasures would eventually be looted, the grandeur of its design remains a reflection of the esteem in which Merneptah held his role as protector of Egypt. The greatness of pharaohs and the endurance of a people, Merneptah's life and reign stand as a symbol of endurance in a world where empires rise and fall like the Nile's annual flood. His efforts, though challenged by famine, invasion, and internal strife, preserved Egypt's legacy for another generation. He did not expand the empire as his father Ramesses II had, but he prevented its collapse, and in doing so, Merneptah secured his place among Egypt's great rulers. Kindly click like, subscribe, and share this channel.